Next man up is not only the motto of the Milwaukee Brewers rotation to start this season, but also the Brew Crew Scoop. We have Ryan here filling in for Coach Kean and Scoop as they are a bit busy this week, but we still wanted to touch base. So, Ryan, first appearance of the season. How are you?
I'm doing well. I was a little worried after I wasn't invited back that I said something on the last episode. But hey, like you said, when the A bullpen is run down after a few appearances, the B bullpen's got to step up.
Yeah, you can't expect big dogs like Kean to be eating every outing, right? Sometimes you got to let the Jake Bowers of the world come in and pitch a couple. So, nice to have you,
Hey,
Jake Bowers.
if if my ERA is like Jake Bauer's, I'll take it. We can work with that.
This is true. I don't want to spoil for any of the individuals in our Immaculate Grid chat, but my brewer with a sub 3 ERA was in fact Jake Bowers on the Immaculate Grid today. So way to tie that in. Way to read minds there, Ryan. So since we last talked, we previewed the fact that we had the Priester making his debut. We thought for the Brewers after an acquisition on Monday, I think it was, which is when we met. So we'll run through the Rocky series and the series down in Phoenix, and we'll roll from there. So Tuesday, Freddie Peralta had a good outing in Colorado. 5 innings pitched, 3 hits, 3 walks, 1 earned, 6 Ks. Uribe, Payamps, Mears, Hudson closed it out, all of which had 2 strikeouts and all of which gave up no runs. We won that game 7-1. Um, Wednesday, Alexander, who I think is on the bump tonight, went 3 2/3, 6 hits, 2 earned, 2 walks, 3 Ks. Handed that off to Piguero, who went to Mears, to Koenig, to Grant Anderson. And they didn't give up any runs, and that was the game we won 17-2. We won 7-1 on that first game. So Bats woke up in Colorado, which isn't really a surprise. And then Thursday we saw Priester debut. He went 5 innings, 6 hits, 2 walks, 4 Ks, 1 earned. Um, and honestly, he gave us a shot in that game. But then Uribe gave up some runs. Piamps gave up more runs, and we lost 2-7. So we came out of Colorado with 2 wins, and at least going into that Thursday game, our run differential I think was actually back above. We were positive, which was good to see after the Yankee series, and some people acting like the season was already over 3 games in. So good series there, and believe it or not, the bats woke up, including Yelly hitting a mammoth homer, but he was definitely not the only one to hit a homer out there. So that was that series, and then we went to Phoenix, and we saw a former foe turned Brewers friendly. So we saw Quintana's Brewers debut, in which he threw 7 innings and definitely did not look like he missed a beat with the late signing and all that. So 7 innings, 4 hits, 2 Ks. Yeah, he looked great. And then later in the game, we pulled away, and Koenig and McGill shut it down, and we won that game 7-0. Um, Saturday, Chad Patrick went 4 1/3, gave up 5 hits, 2 walks, 3 Ks, but still had a pretty clean outing. And then Hudson, Uribe, Koenig, and Mears kept it close. And once again, Mr. Piamps came in, and the game was no longer close after Piamps and McGill had their run in that game, and we lost. Well, it was close, but we lost 5-4. In a pretty painful one, to be honest. That was a game I thought we were maybe gonna steal, um, or give Han Corbin an L. He looked okay. He didn't look great. He just kind of grinded through a 6 inning outing, but it was definitely there for us to win that game, and um, yeah, give that one away. And then Sunday, we saw Freddie again. He went 5 1/3, 4 hits, 2 earned, 4 walks, 6 Ks. Nick Mears got Freddie out of a pinch in 4 pitches. But then Hudson came in and gave up a run, and Grant Anderson gave up, well, I guess he technically didn't give up earned runs, but he gave up, I think, 2 runs because of a done error, and we ended up losing that game as well. So we were could have definitely swept the Diamondbacks and instead won one game. So not an ideal series in Phoenix, but that's a good team. Um, but good teams can't be letting games slip away like that. So all in all, since we last talked, we went 3-3. Um, we're still afloat. We're tied for second in the division with the Reds. The Cubs are at 11 wins and 7 losses after that big win last night on Sunday Night Baseball over the Dodgers. And then the Cardinals are at 7-8, and Pittsburgh are at 5-11. The more I see Pittsburgh and the Cardinals, I'm not that worried about them. But the Buccos still do have a strong rotation, so you don't want to get them on the wrong day. But all in all, I think the division is shaping up kind of how I'd expect. I would imagine maybe the Reds find a little more offense throughout the season because they've been kind of leaning on their off pitchers a bit to start the year. But I think it'll be a tight race. The Cubs had some recent news with losing Steele for the
Mhm.
season, so I think that's gonna. I don't know. Personally, I was pretty high on the Reds going into the year. Kind of always high on the Brewers. Obviously, I'm a Brewers fan, but um, relatively high on the Cubs with Tucker and all that. But I think the Steele thing is going to hurt more than some people are acting. Maybe not, but he's kind of their dude. I mean, Shota is also a guy, but I don't know. I'd be worried if I was the Cubs, especially come playoff time. I think that hurts them a lot. I don't know. I don't know what you think. You never gave your
Yeah.
preseason predictions on the pod for the division, but
Yeah, I think I had the Crew taking the Central, but Cubs shortly behind. I think Steele is a loss. I mean, I don't know who you're talking to that feels that that's maybe not the case. Maybe it's our good friend that we like to talk to, and maybe token Cubs fan, um, friend of the podcast. But
yeah.
um, I think it's a guy that they've relied on for a few years now, and a guy that Council kind of had in his pocket to say, he's going to give us 6 innings. He's going to kind of be that hoss on the mound, and anytime you take any rotation, I mean, we've seen it. Um, any rotation that gets that guy taken away is gonna struggle. So we'll see how it plays out. They're playing good ball right now. They just took it to the Dodgers. So
Yep. And I know I was listening to the broadcast last night and I heard I think Council was comparing Tucker to his new Yelich almost with a little bit of a different profile, but I kind of saw it and at least he's still respectful down there, even if some Brewers fans don't want to hear it. But yeah, so this week we have Tigers and the Athletics both at AmFam. I think tonight we see Scooble, or as some would say, Scooballs in your mouth. So um, he's actually not started the season that well, but he is a lefty, and I don't think the Brewers have fully fixed their woes against lefties. So we'll see.
you had to pick one pitcher in this entire league to not face as a fan of the Crew. I think Screwball is the one. But what I will say is I feel like this team kind of, at least in recent history, especially under Murph, has risen to the occasion against these premier pitchers. So, well, should be an interesting one, even if Skubal kind of flexes his muscle.
Yep, we got him and then Flaherty and Olson. And I think Olson was originally the Brewers org, so that's a little revenge game for him, but we'll have something waiting for him. Then we have Alexander, Priester in an open spot on Wednesday, and I have not seen anything official about that. I know Carlos F. Rodriguez threw last on Friday, and he had a really good outing, which we may talk about later, um, in Nashville. And I think there's a chance maybe it's a spot there. Otherwise, um, I mean, we've seen the Brewers version of Erod a couple times this year. I'm not sure the fan base would love to see that be the next announced starter, but there's also a chance he is the guy called upon. So it'll be interesting, I think, to see exactly where the Crew goes on that. But after that, we go back to Chad Patrick and Freddie Peralta, I think, and then back to the top with Alexander. So for now, that's what we're running with. But we'll talk about it. I guess we can hop right into it right now, almost with the transactions portion of things. Um, we saw Mears came back and he's looked really good. Obviously, Quintana got activated, and then Tobias Myers and had another rehab start, and Big Woo had a nice outing in Nashville, and it sounds like they're taking the slow road on that, which makes sense coming back from a big surgery like that on the shoulder. So I'm sure they'll max out his time on the IL, or I guess on the rehab stint. But he threw and it went pretty well. So that's awesome to see. But especially Tobias, I think he went 60 pitches. So I guess maybe one more start, and by next week he might be back in the rotation. So yeah, guys are falling into form, which is obviously needed after the hit we took to start the year. Um, and Connor Thomas went to the IL, I think. Those are the main transactions, and we can hop into the hot hitters of the week.
Stop jumping on fire, Ricky Bobby! I'm on fire! He's so hot right now.
Ryan, I'll let you go first, and I'll clean up the whatever you leave, whatever crumbs you leave me.
I'm going to take the biggest crumb, I think, the most
No.
obvious one. I believe they just announced that he was NL Player of the Week as well. William Contreras got back on track to the tune of 9 for 23, three bombs, two of them coming in the first two against Colorado, and then one in the first inning on Sunday. But unable to put that one home. But also had two doubles, 10 ribbies on the week. So good to see our Silver Slugger kind of get back on track and show that he can still be that guy. Interesting enough, so far this year, 1 for 20 at home. So done most of his damage on the road. Hopefully he can turn that around shortly here against a worthy opponent in the Tigers tonight.
Yeah, yeah, I think I don't know. His brother started really slow too, and some guys just takes a little bit, right? Well, not everyone necessarily, I guess, has played baseball, but I assume most people that are Brewers fans at one point played some form of baseball. And I mean, sometimes it's clicking, sometimes it's not, but it seems like Williams back, and we need that because we only have so many studs, but he's arguably our best player. Well, Churio might have a little argument these days,
Arguably.
but speaking of Churio and William Contreras, I was looking at the possible World Baseball Classic lineups today, and Venezuela might be a fun team to watch come World Baseball Classic with those two as a Brewers fan. But anyways, um, I could go with Bryce Terang, but he also got a mention last week, so I'm gonna go with the guy who might need the pick me up, and I'm gonna actually shout out Joey Ortiz. So he might not have been a hot hitter necessarily, but he was a hot get on first baser. 24 plate appearances, 5 hits, 6 walks, 5 runs, 2 RBI, 1 hit by pitch. So his on base percentage was 522. If he's going to hit in that 8-9 hole, there's not much more you can ask out of a guy than to be on first base when the top comes up. So if we can just continue to get some offensive production out of him, and he can play a clean short like he's been, um, I think Brewers fans have to be happy. And we saw last year, he's got a little more pop in the bat too, I think. He's just finding form, getting comfortable, but he's a fun guy to have on the team, and hopefully we can all be rolling at once, and then the Brewers will be a force to be reckoned with.
Just gonna say, I think if you can get the production that you got last year from Joey, I think his
Oh
OPS
yeah.
is somewhere in the 720s.
I
Totally
think he was
happy with
like
that.
102 OPS plus. We were talking about this
Mhm.
the other day because I forgot what play, maybe McMahon, which
It was
his OPS plus gets screwed because he plays in Colorado, so he has to like overachieve, but at the same time, the whole point of the stat is it's supposed to standardize your stadium. But yeah, technically, Ortiz had a higher OPS plus. But yeah, if he's a league average bat, that's incredible. When you're comparing him to, I guess, what could have been a couple of years ago with an Orlando Arcia type, he was never, well, I don't think he had a full season at 100 OPS plus. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, not until he got to Atlanta. I bet
Yeah,
he's
not
had
anymore though.
maybe
Not
one or two
anymore.
since then.
It's cooled down.
I can hop into the hot pitchers
You fellas are untouchable. Is that the thing? No one can get to you?
because I think there's an obvious one for this one too. The newest addition to the rotation, Mr. Quintana. 7 innings, no runs, 4 hits scattered over those seven, and an 80 pitch effort. Felt like it could have been stretched to 8 if it wasn't his first
Yeah.
outing, but just kind of one of those professional starts that us Brew fans have come to hate coming from him, and even Pat Murphy said the same um, in similar words after the start. But just quality innings and innings eaten that the Brewers so desperately need, kind of after the start. Um, Especially that first series, you were kind of wondering after if they're just decimated by injuries and kind of wondering where you're going to get those innings from. And Quintana coming back definitely couldn't have happened soon enough. So happy to see that, and happy to see he started get with a good one right off the bat.
Yeah, you definitely can't ask for more than that. And if all season, obviously, I'm not going to expect him to have a 0 ERA, but um, I think he'll use the defense behind him well. He's a vet. He knows how to play, and been a pretty consistent guy in lineups, injury wise and stuff. So hopefully he can just be a kind of reliable guy in that rotation because as we've seen, you never know what's going to hit and when. So that is a good shout. I'm going to give kind of a couple of relievers a shout. So Nick Mears and Koenig. Mears went 3.2 innings pitched, 4 Ks, no earned, and Koenig went 3 innings pitched, 4 hits, a walk, and 4 Ks with no earned. So both of them did everything you can ask out of a reliever, and that's not to give up runs, or in Mears' case, much of anything. So both um, look good, and hopefully they can keep rolling because the bottom half of that bullpen's not what it's been in years past. So um, as long as those guys can at least keep the top half strong, that'll help. Um, we can hop into around the farm, and I know you have at least someone you want to talk about, and I am a-okay with this individual getting a shout.
If it hadn't been for those meddling kids. If it hadn't been for you meddling kids. Ah, meddling kids. If it hadn't been for these meddling laddies.
Well, it's Ernie Martinez down in AAA Nashville. Another player of the week for the Brewers org, International League Player of the Week
I think I saw
this week.
that when someone, I don't know if it's just a Nashville thing or across the org, but they donate $200 to a charity of Ernesto's choosing. So
Well, there you go. Hopefully Ernie
uh,
chooses that one wisely.
yeah.
But he had a excellent week as well, similar to our friend Mr. Contreras. 9 hits, 2 homers, 8 ribbies, um, bringing him to a 1.5 OPS for the week. Raising some eyes around the baseball world, especially those who are studying kind of the prospects. Couple features and articles I've seen, lots of tweets putting him in some good company as far as kind of those numbers that we're seeing in AAA and those underlying metrics. Bright red all over his Savant page if you've looked at that lately.
Baseball isn't just numbers. It's not science.
You sure about that?
He's in the 99th percentile in the minors and um, expected weighted on base average, exit velo, max exit velo, strikeout, walk rates, all of it looks good right now, and especially when you're seeing what's happening at that first base slot for the Crew, and what it's produced so far. Not that you expect to move on from Reese this early in the year, but it does feel like he could be making an early push for a slot on this big league team.
Yeah, he's an older prospect, who was a little raw early on, but he's stuck in the org, and he's even like played center in the minors, which is
Yeah, he's
unusual
sneaky
for a
fast.
6'5", 6'6" guy like that. Yeah, he hits the splits, making plays at first. That was one thing that was also he was raw overall, but the move to first was newer for him a couple years ago, and it seems like he's starting to settle in there. Um, but yeah, he uses his frame and he hits the ball rather hard. But yeah,
Yeah,
fun guy to
people
have
are
in the org.
excited about him. I think it's a good story too to see those guys that are a little bit older and maybe don't have that traditional prospect path to the bigs, make that kind of push towards the end of their development, and hopefully something comes of it. I mean, you've seen these guys in the past end up kind of phasing out as they get to the big leagues, but something to be excited about, especially with those numbers that you're seeing.
Yeah, I think Scoop's gonna get excited after he hears that. Those old prospects should never give up. Yeah, definitely Ernesto gets a shout. A couple starters in that Nashville team as well, and Logan Henderson and Carlos F. Rodriguez both had super good starts. Henderson went 5 shutty, struck out 8, I believe. So that was a good start. And then I have the numbers for Carlos F. Rodriguez as well. He went 5 2/3, gave up 1 hit, 0 runs, 7 Ks, and a walk. Retired the first 16 batters and struck out the first 6. So, um, both those guys humming, and that's what they're both on the 40. I think there's a pretty good chance we'd see both of them this year, but hopefully not. Maybe everyone gets healthy and we don't have to. But we like him enough to have him on the 40 man, so they're backing it up. And then believe it or not, Craig Yoho has gone 7 innings and a third with 8 Ks and no earned runs given up. Now, I believe also we've passed what most people think is the Super 2 cutoff for this year. So I guess I'm just wondering why he's not on this team. Um, yeah, we can actually get into this right now, and I'll come back to a couple prospects. But yeah, the heat on Piamps is growing real hot. And you can't really, well, you can argue against it because he's been a mainstay in this bullpen. And honestly, he doesn't look as bad as like the numbers look, but at some point, if you're being put in high leverage situations or any situation in a Major League Baseball game as a pitcher, your job is to not give up runs, and he's not succeeded to date. So, yeah, on Brewers social Twitter, I'll say the seat's growing real hot for some people, and I think it's fair because he's struggling. And I think what hurts the case is when there is a guy like Yoho that is ready to go. So curious what you think. If you think you'd be a little more patient, or at the end of the day, if there's not really a good excuse to have Yoho not in the league yet. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's early. I mean, you kind of take a whip around the league, you still see some of those guys that you really expect to be those dominant relievers haven't quite settled in, and maybe some of that's the cold of the early season or whatever the case. Pienaps is not that at baseline. He's been a solid reliever for us for a couple of years now, and I think the general test rule of thumb when you think about these guys, kind of the middle of the pen setup guys, is when they're coming into the game, are you trusting that they're going to get their job done? And I think at this point, you can't say that about Pienaps. And when you have a guy like Yoho sitting in the minors, like you said, past the Super Two, um, seems like the obvious move. I don't know if Pienaps still has an option.
He doesn't. He
Feels
doesn't.
feels like he's one of those guys that probably wouldn't. Yeah, but
Well, I know.
um,
I think like Alvin Rodriguez does and Grant Anderson
mhm,
do. So I would think one of those two maybe
yeah.
would move. And I mean, Payamps, if he can look okay for a couple starts, and we think we have enough bodies, he might get something too. He has been a strong reliever, at least like a DFA when we get something back. But
And you can't hide a guy, right? I mean, you can throw
no,
him in the low leverage situations and may, he maybe finds something there and becomes kind of over the season somebody you can trust again, and that maybe seems to me like the most likely scenario here. I think some of that hurt from Brewers fans, especially comes back all the way back to the playoffs where he made that critical error
yeah, I
covering
actually
first
did
base
see
and
that come back up. Someone's like, and after he didn't cover
yeah.
first last year,
I
and I'm like,
it's part of it. I mean, these things,
yeah,
Wisconsin sports fans, Brewers fans especially, we've felt our pains and not easily forgetting things like that, but struggles early on for sure, and probably not the guy you want to be trotting out there in the eighth, and especially not in the ninth, even if you have a little bit of a cushion. So
yeah. Yeah. The bullpen, I don't know. Like even when McGill goes in, I feel like, I mean, he has nasty stuff, so that's fine. But sometimes I feel like he's just throwing it where it goes. Like his fastball looks pretty damn down the middle pretty often, and I mean, who knows where the knuckle curve's going. But between him and Uribe's been good this year, but I'm not always trusting that he's going to throw strikes either. So the bullpen's in a weird spot. And Hudson, it looks like he's been good until he's back to back. Same issue we had last year where he's doesn't seem quite as sharp 2 days in a row, which makes it a little harder to hide a guy like Piamps. But I think Mears, Koenig, we have a strong enough bullpen. It's just, I don't know, looks a lot thinner this year than years past. And I don't think that's just because Devin was not here for half of last year. So we'll settle in, I think, and probably call upon Yoho like we talked about, but I just don't know quite what they're waiting for anymore. But we'll
I think
see.
the complexion of this pen looks a lot different if you have even just one guy emerge.
Yeah.
Whether that's Yoho coming up and kind of being what Brewers fans think he's going to be, or somebody else kind of riding the ship, or maybe some acquisition down the line. I think they're not far off. And going into the season, it was something that we thought was going to be a strength. So maybe the fall off from elite to very good down to maybe just kind of good right now, especially given the starting pitching situation is maybe not what we've expected. So
Yeah, yeah, and I think soon enough, Tyler Alexander will probably revert to like a long reliever. Priester, Quintana for a while, I think will stay in that rotation. I think Chad Patrick will be the other earlier man out. He's looked good, obviously, but I think part of it is balls are hitting being hit to the right guys and stuff. I don't know if he'll be this guy for a whole season. But he's been great in his opportunities. So once I think we get some health between Ashby, Savali, Nestor had the injection, Hall eventually, Tobias, Myers, and Woodruff will have a little more depth in that bullpen too, I think, between a couple guys. So,
yeah.
um, yeah,
Another name I'll throw out is Mizorowski. I think if he figures into the 2025 Brewers picture, it's going to be from the pen, just based on what I've seen as far as the control goes from him. I know that they're trying to keep him stretched out and maybe see him as that starter in the future, but to me, the most likely scenario for him is a pen guy long term, even if that's maybe not the hope right now. So I think you'll see him in the pen at some point too, and maybe he provides something.
yeah. I was gonna say he's still definitely putting up good numbers as a starter down there, but he's missing spots and is still having some control issues. So that's why, yeah, probably a pen. But then we'll have like four guys that are 6'5" and throw 100, but can't throw strikes. But
Hey,
we'll see.
that
Might.
sounds like a great bullpen to me. You got the
Yeah.
sidearm lefties,
Yeah.
couple guys throwing 95, 100.
Yeah.
I think that's a recipe.
It looks like in double A, they're starting a little slow, but we'll have Javik on soon and we'll debrief with him at that time. So I'll save any double A talk. But in high A, Bishop Letson is a guy I wanted to shout out. He's gone 8 1/3. He has a 40% K rate and a 6.7% walk rate with an opponent average of 0.143. Also Tyson Harden had pretty similar numbers for them. It looks like they have a pretty strong staff right now in high A. The Timber Rattlers do. So, and then the last thing is in low A, there are 8 guys over 800 OPS right now for the Mudcats. We are raking the ball, and there's a lot of good young talent there. And specifically, wanted to shout out 2024 fourth rounder Marco Dingus. He has 20 plate appearances, 3 runs, 4 RBI, 4 doubles, 3 walks, for a 1.238 OPS to start the year. He was a guy I think people were pretty excited when we saw we drafted him and signed him, and he's DH'd and caught kind of evenly throughout this year so far, but it's only been a couple of games. Very curious to see if he can stay behind the plate as a catcher defensively, because as we know that any offensive production out of that position gets quite the I don't know, premium or elevated status. So a lot of guys to keep an eye on, a lot of fun to be had in the Brewers minor league system. So otherwise, I think the one thing is there was a lot of we were going to talk about was there's a lot of elevated opinions after the Saturday loss. We already talked about people wanting Piamps long gone from this team, which it is. He's definitely in a tough run, and there's not um, you can't take that for too long, so it's not crazy. But then people come in for complaining about Murph and complaining about who knows what, and it's just people got to simmer. I think Murph proved last year he's got a pretty good grip on things, and no teams won every game in a 162 game season. And I would have to reckon no teams gone without blowing a lead. So um, that's the sport, and that's why they play 162 games. But I know you wanted to maybe put a claim out there to tell people just to relax a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if you want to share that.
Yeah, I'll save my Aaron Rodgers impression, but yeah, I mean the early season losses they hurt worse. You're in what you're not even 20 games in. These ones that you lose coming from behind, yeah, they're gonna sting at the beginning of the year, and everyone can play kind of armchair manager and do all that business. But I think if you told us after, especially after that Yankee series, we're 8-8 coming out of our first long road trip out west. I think you're fine with that. I think given our injury situation and kind of what the expectations were going in to kind of just be staying afloat at this point is fine. So I think yeah, a little perspective from Brewers Twitter is appreciated and I think necessary at this point. I think we're in a fine spot to kind of shoot shoot out the gates the rest of the way. So
Yeah. Yeah, I saw one account that was like, I don't know, they basically said after the first three games, you already knew it's not even worth cheering for this team. It's hard to cheer for the team, and it's like, then don't. Like, who care? Who are you? Who do you think you are that I care? Some random account cheers, or I don't know. If it's too hard, don't be a Brewers fan, I guess. That's those of us that are able to endure and tough it out, we'll get the reward. Maybe someday. Um,
hey, some of us weren't didn't have the privilege of choosing our teams growing up and we're born into these
yep,
fandoms.
yep,
So
like Craig
we
Counsell,
deal with it.
like
Yeah,
Craig Counsell.
exactly.
But
Yep.
now
Born a brewer.
he was purchased into another fan base, so good for him, maybe. But um,
Hey, if anyone's out there looking, I think there are some fans that are willing.
mhm. Yeah, otherwise both series at home this week. I won't be able to go, but it was we went on what was that last Saturday? The new food and the stadium had a good vibe. I think it'll be a fun year at Brewers games this year. Between the new additions for the food and the uke tributes kind of throughout the stadium and stuff. I don't know. It was good to get back in the ballpark.
Yeah,
But
airways feel a little bit empty, so best way to cure that is to go and see them for yourself. So I
yep.
agree.
Yep, that's you got any final thoughts? Anything brewing?
Just first beer of the year was the Kugel's Barrel Man at the park. So shout out to the Barrel Man.
I'll have a brewski, Charlie.
Well, there's nothing like a cold one after a long day, huh? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been known to drink a beer or two.
And I think it's an okay spot that the crew are in right now, and I
Yeah,
think from
given
here
given
it's kind of the
everything that has happened so far, we're definitely happy with 8-8. You gotta think, and we'll get some reinforcements soon enough to the rotation, and things will start taking shape. Yeah, we should be rolling, but it is going to be a competitive division, I think, with these top three teams. And then if you get the Cardinals or the Pirates on the wrong day, they got tough games too. Sonny Gray is still a stud, and we all know the guys the Pirates have um, in their starting rotation. So yeah, it's not a cakewalk as they would say, but we still got
I
we
think I think when your manager tells you that your team's not clicking at this point, but they're still finding ways to win, I think you should feel all right about your chances for the year as a contender.
Yep. Yep. They'll be fun to watch no matter what. Between 460-foot dingers and walk-off squeezes, we'll have a fun summer. So, um, you got your World Series prediction while you're here? You missed the prediction pod. World Series MVP.
I believe my World Series was Dodgers against who cares and Dodgers in four. So
That was kind of a
I went with
consensus.
the
Yeah.
fun trendy pick.
Got any MVPs? I had a sleeper Jacob Wilson take. He started the year on fire for the Athletics. I wish I could take back my rookie take, but he's starting to take shape, so it might be okay.
I staked claim on Jackson Jobe as a
Okay.
rookie of the year guy. I think he's got awesome stuff. I think he started out
He's been okay.
okay.
Yeah.
He'll have to kind of turn it on if he wants to be that rookie of the year guy. But
All right. You got an MVP? I saw Jared Carabas said the other day, he said he thinks his hot take of the year might be wire to wire Jackson Churio MVP
hey,
candidacy.
music to my ears. I think Shohei and Judge are the guys that boringly are kind of guilty until
Hey,
proven otherwise.
don't sleep
But
on Kyle Tucker. Dog.
it's not on this pod.
All right. Well, we had I feel like you stepped up. You filled in for two guys at once. You did the job.
Yeah,
Nothing
couple
else you can
walks
ask for.
maybe,
Yeah, it
couple
happens.
guys stranded, no
Hey,
runs.
no
All right,
runs.
come on.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Go Brewers.
Yep, go Brewers.